And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Payload down to nominal.
Flighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good morning. You are taking a live look right now at Florida's Space Coast, where we are less than an hour away from the launch of the next batch of Kuiper satellites for Amazon. And as always, this is not your ordinary Kuiper launch. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for today, and I am, of course, not alone. I am also joined on commentary by Alex. How's it going?
Well, it's going well. I mean, although I don't know, those clouds kind of scare me. Are they gonna launch today? This thing, it doesn't look great out there.
Yeah, you will notice I didn't say looking live at Space Launch Complex 40 because there is currently a Phase 2 lightning warning in effect out in the area, which also means that we are not able to go outside to set up our cameras yet. So that is why we have this wide view watching the weather currently, which was originally forecasted at 80% favorable. But again, there's an ongoing Phase 2 lightning warning there, so we will see what happens with it. And today, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers will be Ryan Caton on production today. So we've got an awesome crew this morning, and of course, Max and Dee are both out there staying safe at the moment until they are able to go outside and get all the cameras and everything set up. So again, there is a look at the kind of rotating maps that they have at the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. See all of those little spots of red and blue there with the lightning, and that is the issues right there. The Phase 1 lightning watch, and the red is the Phase 2 lightning warning. So even though it is still just a lightning watch, it looks like near Pad 40, there are still concerns of lightning in the area right now. So we will continue to keep an eye on that. Now let's talk about today's mission. And a reminder, if you have any questions about today's mission or about Kuiper or about anything, you can tag us at NASA Spaceplate and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. So let's start with this particular mission. Alex, what are we looking at for today's Kuiper launch?
Yeah, well, hopefully, if the weather cooperates today, we should see 24 Kuiper satellites going into low Earth orbit on a Falcon 9. It is not your ordinary internet satellite constellation launch, I guess. Because we're always talking about Starlink and all that, but this is a different kind of internet satellite constellation. Of course, this is Project Kuiper by Amazon, their own sort of version of Starlink, I guess. And they have lots of launches to do, and 3 of them are going on Falcon 9. This is the second of those 3. If you remember, just less than a month ago, they did the first one, Kuiper Falcon 1, and this is Kuiper Falcon 2. Now, that means that today's launch is going to be heading to the northeast. It's going to a roughly 51.9 degree inclination, so almost 52 degrees. The target orbit for today's mission is going to be roughly 465 kilometers circular orbit. Falcon 9 will be performing 2 burns of its second stage. First, obviously, to put it in a sort of parking orbit, and then a second burn later into the mission to circularize to that 465 kilometers in altitude. The first stage for this mission, of course, as usual for Falcon 9, it's going to be doing a drone ship landing out there in the Atlantic Ocean. But one interesting thing about this is this This is a new booster, and it's not just any regular booster. This is B1091, which is a Falcon Heavy center core. It is not a traditional Falcon 9 booster. So it's got no, like, for example, it doesn't have any logos on it. Once the weather clears and everything, you'll see it from our camera views and all that. But it's got no logos on it, no Falcon 9 logo, no SpaceX logo, no US flag, because all of those, when it flies on a Falcon Heavy configuration, are in the intro stage. But instead of having a Falcon Heavy intro stage, it's got a Falcon 9 intro stage. It's got its own set of grid fins, landing legs. It's got the 4 hold downs, because on Falcon Heavy it's only got 2 hold down clamps, for example. So those things have been sort of turned into have made it being able to fly as a single core. And there you can see John Edwards from SpaceX pretty much telling the story about how it's in fact a Falcon Heavy center core, but will fly in a single stick configuration for the time being, and then it will get used whenever it gets used as a Falcon Heavy center core. That way they are able to take advantage of it for a while before actually flying it as a Falcon Heavy center core. You may have seen that a lot of Falcon Heavy center cores get expended. At least this way they get some use out of it before that. Anyways, I think I've already done the longest answer yet, but that's sort of the rundown of today's mission.
Yeah, so this will eventually be the first Falcon Heavy center core to have flown on previous missions as well. So it's kind of cool, the little fun facts with the center core here. Also, Ryan Caton getting very clever with the ticker. You can see there, instead of Falcon 9, it says Falcon Heavy 1 core variant.
Yeah, we were discussing this before the stream for people that may not be aware, and I was being very picky about this because technically every single time they fly a Falcon 9, it is also a 1 core variant of Falcon Heavy, because any Falcon 9 booster can be turned into a side booster of Falcon Heavy, and they've done that a few times, in fact, where a Falcon 9 booster has been turned into a Falcon Heavy side booster, and vice versa. For example, the booster from the Tycom 8 mission or the CRS-9 mission, those 2 boosters first flew as Falcon 9s and then were turned into side cores for the Falcon Heavy demo mission of none other than Falcon Heavy's first flight already had flight-proven Falcon 9 boosters as side cores. And so I'm being very picky, I know, but it's fun to remember that, yeah, Falcon 9 is that versatile. So I really like it that there's this whole thing of being able to not just have to do this super duper special configuration. I may rant a little bit more about that later in the broadcast.
Something to stay tuned and look forward to. More Alex ranting.
No, I'm not wrong, Ryan. I'm not wrong.
This was quite an intense back and forth earlier on, is it or isn't it 1/3, are all Falcon 9s 1/3 of a Falcon Heavy? I'm going to need to see, I think we need chat's opinion on this. I see Simon says that they are all Falcon Heavy variants. I don't know. I mean, technically, I guess they kind of all are, although it feels like some of them have to specifically be designated, because they do have the what's that thing on top? They have like a little nose cone on top that they use during the Falcon Heavy ones, right?
Yeah, for Falcon Heavy side boosters, they do have that. There's a lot of modifications that go into making these boosters, go back and forth between Falcon 9 single core and Falcon Heavy side booster. But the same applies for this one in particular. Like, it's a Falcon Heavy center core, but it got a lot of the hardware that you use for a Falcon 9 single core. Like the interstage, for example, it's different on Falcon Heavy than on Falcon 9. And so, that, for example, was instead of putting the Falcon Heavy interstage, you put a Falcon 9 interstage and things like that. Again, this is sort of those things that, if you're wondering about that, ask at NASA Spaceflight in chat. We may get a bit more into details of those, of course, but yeah.
So here's an interesting question from Human, who says, do you think they will try to land B1091 when it flies on Falcon Heavy? Or are they just, at this point, going to use it to use it as a Falcon 9 and then get ready to dispose of it on the next Falcon Heavy flight?
That, I mean, it is a really nice question, because we do know, at least, even though a lot of the center cores in recent Falcon Heavy missions have been expended, we know, at least from John Edwards himself, that there might be at least one Falcon Heavy mission in the future that might see a recovery of the center core, and that is the Griffin lander mission by Astrobotic. Because it's in that sweet spot where you could recover the side boosters back on land, and also land the Falcon Heavy center core out in a drone ship, and still be more powerful than, say, drone ship recovery of a single stick Falcon 9, right? And so it's a bit more powerful, and it's in that sweet spot where you can recover all three boosters and still do a drone ship recovery of Falcon Heavy center core. So I wouldn't be surprised if, say, in the future, this booster then flies as the Falcon Heavy center core that they attempt to recover it on that mission. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and we'll also see once all of the landing zones are built. Because again, right now, they're down to a single landing zone, LZ2. So that makes it trickier for the double side core return on a Falcon Heavy, which, good thing there isn't one scheduled for quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a while until they actually need the double landing stuff, because I mean it's a concrete circle on the ground, right? It doesn't take that much, and so once they are cleared from all of the paperwork and whatnot, they will probably build that rather quickly.
Also, it is very divided in chat on whether that counts or not. So, very interesting to see. Also interesting, you can kind of see there the payload fairing on the right side of your screen. This is from one of our fleet cams down by Rusty's at the port. And a little breezy there, but so far everything is looking like it's going well. So yes, that was what we meant before with the Falcon Heavy 1-core variant. I guess we should clarify for those who don't exactly know what we mean by that. So Falcon 9 is just the one single booster with the 9 Merlin engines and then a second stage on top, whereas Falcon Heavy is 3 Falcon 9s strapped together. Although, when it comes to Falcon Heavy, the center core, which is what this one will become, is specially reinforced, because that's where a lot of the G-forces, where a lot of the loads on launch go, especially considering that you have those 2 side boosters attached to it. So it's basically built beefier to be able to withstand those extra forces of carrying the 2 boosters with it. So that's why it's built different, and why it's kind of a bigger deal that it is a center core for a Falcon Heavy flying in a single stick configuration. Also, the first time ever that SpaceX has done this. Did I miss anything, Alex?
Yeah, and I mean, from a technical standpoint, it doesn't take much to say, let's take the tanks of a center core, right, and just attach Falcon 9 parts, because you can still do that, right? And that's essentially what they did here, where you still have all of those reinforcements and everything that you need to do to the tanks to be able to support the loads of the side boosters. But now, instead of having the interstage of a Falcon Heavy center core, which has the struts, for example, to attach the side boosters, it's got further reinforcements to support the loads of those side boosters. It's got a lot of different modifications for that Falcon Heavy center core configuration. Falcon 9 doesn't need all of that. It's a different interstage, so you put a Falcon 9 interstage. The octaweb, for example, the bottom of the booster where all of those 9 engines are attached to, it's also different on a Falcon 9 single stick configuration. But the neat thing of Falcon 9 is that those parts can just be bolted out and then put on another one, right? Like, if you need to do that, it's obviously not an easy process, but it's something that they can do. And so it makes Falcon 9, being able to change configurations rather quickly and or rather easier than having to build a specific version of it. The whole reason I mentioned this is because, for example, on Delta 4 Heavy, the center core design and the side booster designs were different from the Delta 4 Medium design. They were specifically made for the Delta 4 Heavy, which made it a lot more complicated to handle all of those launches. And it's probably the main reason why it was such an expensive rocket. Whereas Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, you have that sort of additional flexibility, if you will.
So you may have noticed, by the way, folks, the clock in the top left has indeed updated. You are not seeing things. SpaceX has announced that the new launch time is 10:17 a.m. Eastern Time, so that is a 15-minute slip. The window is 27 minutes, so a little under a half-hour window. So they still have about half of the window left if they need it. But as mentioned before, the Phase 2 lightning warning still in effect for parts of the area, as well as a Phase 1 lightning watch. So weather, very much a concern. So I guess SpaceX waiting to hopefully find that gap in the window. And you can see there on Next Spaceflight, the new Next Spaceflight website design there, which I really like, where they are into the window. So there you go. You can see they're getting towards the end of it, but they still have time. So we are now 57 minutes to go until launch. Let me thank some people who were giving support before we even started the stream. Mike B, thank you for becoming a PadRat member. And Sue, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. We can only do what we do because of support from viewers like you. So thank you, everyone. Now, this one is interesting. Before we go into the details on Kuiper itself, because I do want to talk about the satellites and the network, this is an important milestone for Falcon 9 this year. Today's flight will mark the 100th flight for SpaceX if you include Starship. 100 flights already by August 7th. Alex, are we on track to maybe break the record from last year?
Yeah, we definitely are on track. Of course, knock on wood, everything goes well for Falcon 9, right? But yeah, this is the 100th launch of the year for SpaceX, the 97th for Falcon 9. And the important thing of that is that they are most definitely going to break their record from last year, where they did 134 launches. So yeah, right now they have plenty of time to not only break the record, but even surpass it by a good amount of launches. If they keep on track, it will be more than 160 Falcon 9 launches. Now, on top of that, you have to add maybe, hopefully 5 Starship launches. We've already had 3 of them, maybe another one in a few weeks, right? And there's probably going to be a 5th one a few months from now. So we'll see about that, how the full number turns out to be. But I would expect well above 150 for Falcon 9. Again, right now on track for more than 160. And let's just hope that it keeps me like that, or better than that, of course.
I mean, yeah, that would be amazing to be even better. But right now, I think SpaceX's biggest concern is what we're seeing today, weather. There's only so much they can control from a rocket side. We are in Florida. We are still in hurricane season. It is Florida summers where storms love to pop up out of nowhere and just cause disruptions. So, I mean, right now, that might be the only thing slowing them down. But they've been going full speed ahead, even with the Florida weather. Which, along those lines, Supersonic Retro Propulsion was asking, are the weather constraints at the pad different for a crew launch versus cargo? Which, no, not at the pad itself. There's, of course, the added constraints for ascent abort corridor. So basically, as they're launching, if something went wrong and they needed to abort and jettison the capsule, they have areas where it can splash down in, and then rescue crews would go get them. They obviously want waters that are a lot calmer, a lot more gentle. That's not going to cause your crew to get sick or cause issues for the capsule's buoyancy. So in terms of flight, it's that, but otherwise it's the exact same rules, the same concerns of flying through clouds, creating artificial lightning as the rocket flies through it. Same with the flight through precipitation rule, because those clouds typically can cause lightning. So basically, weather-wise, from the pad, it's all the same.
Yeah. In terms of rules, as you said, it's the same, right? The only thing that I will be worried about on a crew mission, though, is they load the crew like 3 hours or so before the launch, right? So if the weather is too horrible 3 hours beforehand, even though it might be perfect at the time of launch, and that can happen very easily at Florida, right? Where 3 hours before the launch, the weather is horrible. but the weather is super duper perfect at time of launch. Because you're loading crew, you might not want to have really horrible like thunderstorms or things like that at the time of that. That will be the only thing, but that doesn't have anything to do with the launch, right? So it's more about the operations of having to have a crew on board and all that relative to a cargo mission. Well, the cargo is already loaded and it's already there, like we're seeing there on the right hand side, the tip of Falcon 9 at Slick 40. And so it's like, yeah, that gets loaded 2 or 3 days before the launch, right? So it's not a big deal in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah, Amazon just posted a photo of it rolling out yesterday, but they didn't roll it out just yesterday because it takes a while to go from their processing facility all the way over to Slick 40 to then be mated with Falcon 9. All right, speaking of, as we take a view now at the rocket, we can finally see 1091 and the next batch of Amazon Kuiper satellites at Slick 40. Looking good. Again, we'll see if the weather is going to hold out, as we are now 52 and a half minutes away from the scheduled T0 here. Yes, Ryan, we missed a chance to use the breaking news stinger. But let's talk a little bit about Kuiper and the satellites and everything launching on this one, because it can sometimes get a bit confusing. So these also have particular orbital layers or shells similar to Falcon 9, or excuse me, similar to Starlink, right?
Yeah, they have multiple different shells and things like that. This one in particular is going to the 51.9 degree orbital inclination shell. And also, I believe it's about 560 or something like that. I really am sorry about that because there's so many numbers when it comes to Kuiper. Like, for example, the number of total satellites and things like that. But I know, at least for this mission in particular, so they obviously don't deploy directly to the operational orbit because you kind of want to have a bit of time to test them. So this one in particular is being launched to 465 kilometer altitude. So in terms of which of the altitudes of the shells, because they obviously are split in inclinations and altitudes. The altitudes, it's probably the least of concerns for Falcon 9 in this case, because it's gonna be, whatever different altitude they eventually go to, that's something that happens later, right? Whereas Falcon 9, it's 465, that's it. And doesn't care about anything else what happens afterwards. But yeah, so as you can see there, that's from the previous satellite launch for Kuiper from Falcon 9, Kuiper Falcon 1. Happened just, you can see that tweet, it's from July 16th. It happened less than a month ago. So it's been quite of a quick deployment, I guess. It's not easy to be able to create so many satellites in such a short amount of time. Only Starlink has been able to demonstrate that. So props to them for that.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically they've got their 3 orbiting altitudes for this one, which as of now are 590, 610, and 630 kilometers in altitude. I know those are the numbers you were thinking of. Just for reference for people of where that is, the ISS is about 400 kilometers up, so it's about 250 miles. So this is above the orbit of the International Space Station and a little bit higher than you mentioned, the 485 that we're used to for Starlinks.
Yeah, the Starlinks are also like, when they're deployed, SpaceX tries to deploy them as slow as possible. Because the Starlink satellites, they have ion thrusters, and ion thrusters are very slow thrust. It's like very, very low thrust. And the lower you go, the more atmospheric drag, because there's still a bit of atmosphere up there, right? And they have to balance, like, because if you go too deep in, and too low, and orbit too low, it's such low thrust on those thrusters, on those engines, on the satellites, that it might actually not be enough to counteract the drag. And we had something similar when the Starlink 9-3 mission last year, it failed to do the relight of the second stage, and What is this? Hang on, we're having some Reinhardt here. But the whole point is that if you go too low, then you're not going to be able to counteract the drag, and so they try to do it as low as possible. For example, the next Starlink mission, which should be out of Vandenberg, that's going to go to less than 300 kilometers.
Too
But yeah,
low.
whereas this one with Kuiper, it's going to 465. Kuiper is like, yeah, no, you put us, rather, not that low. Perhaps if Falcon, were not restricted by that, maybe if it were a little bit lower, maybe you could carry a couple more satellites, maybe 26 instead of 24 or something like that. I have no idea, to be fair. But it's one of those things that then gets into the way of how they're deploying these different satellite constellations, and while they're carrying 24 instead of, for example, Atlas can carry a little bit more. They can carry 27, for example. But yeah.
There's the graphic now for Mr. Map himself, Ryan Caton. The red line, obviously, too low. You get the drag, and then the green line is the smiley face, which I'm guessing is meant to represent the orbit of the Kuiper satellites. Please tell me that'll be available as a print in the shop.
Not to scale, yeah.
And then ResistoJet asking, are the satellites placed in these different orbital planes and in different altitude layers because they're orbiting in different directions to each other and could interfere? Do these all go the same way? Because I know we're used to seeing kind of like that crisscross pattern with a mix of some going polar, some going equatorial.
I mean, in the same way, it depends on what one is thinking about. Most of the satellites do share the fact that they're going in a prograde orbit, meaning that their orbits go from west to east, right? Because that's the way that the Earth's rotation goes. But there are exceptions, of course. In the case of Starlink, for example, they do have a couple of inclinations that go to sun-synchronous orbits. And those are 97 degrees, more or less, inclination. And that means they are slightly retrograde. So in terms of interfering with themselves, for example, in the same constellation or with other constellations, with again Kuiper with Starlink or OneWeb, or even like China's Go1, for example, like those are more about the frequencies that they use, because even though like it's such a mesh of different satellites that you have to cover, like if you don't interact, if you don't have that crisscross kind of thing, right, of crossing the different satellites and everything, if you don't have that, then that means you're not covering Earth efficiently, right? That's essentially what it will mean. But if you operate in a different frequency, then the waves don't care about that, because that's essentially what makes those in interactions essentially happen. It's these frequency interactions and things like that. If you are transmitting in the same frequency, then of course you're gonna have problems with other operators, which is why usually the Federal Communications Commission sort of reserves certain frequencies for certain different companies. And so this is essentially what they usually do. And it is also why Kuiper, this constellation, because this ties in with the whole deployment cadence that we were talking about before, they have a limit, they have a deadline where they have to deploy half of the constellation by the end of July 2026. And so that means it's going to be quite tight to deploy more than 1,600 satellites into orbit from now until then. And otherwise they can lose the rights to emit in this spectrum and the frequencies and whatnot. So it's rather important, and that's why there are these regulations, because you don't want to mess with other folks also transmitting.
Exactly, yeah. So they have to have exactly the minimum that they must have by the middle of next year is 1,618 operational satellites. So that's the key thing there. Not just in space, but in orbit and operational. So they are really going to be cutting it close here. And so far with this launch, they currently have 78 Kuiper satellites in orbit. This will bring it up to 102. But man, that's going to be tight. Do you think they're going to make the deadline?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, they will have to have launches like this every single week, essentially, to be able to do that. And it's not just the launch cadence itself; it's also having the satellites in the first place, right? As I said before, you can have all of the launches in the world, right? Like if Starlink, they have had dozens of launches across the entirety of the program for Starlink, and that's good. That's great that they had Falcon 9, but they also needed to have the satellites in the first place, which are already, they have launched more than 9,000 of them, and it's been in essentially 6 years or so. There's no other company out there that's made such a huge amount of satellites in such a short amount of time, and so there's also that as well. I don't know if Kuiper will be able to churn out so many of those satellites in such short amount of time. We'll see. I mean, but they probably will just ask for an extension for that. To be fair, but yeah, we'll see next year.
Wait, so the SpaceX number is over 9,000? What? 9,000? Sorry. But yeah, so that is going to be interesting to see. I'm with you. I think they're going to have to go ahead and get a waiver to do so, because part of the issue is the fact that they don't actually have all of the rockets that they need to launch ready. They have a bunch that are scheduled for New Glenn, which obviously has only flown once at this point. We also have Vulcan, which hasn't flown any yet for Kuiper, and that will be the next launch out of Slick 41 will be Kuiper, but this one is carrying a U.S. Space Force satellite. Then they'll switch over to Kuiper. So getting that manifest there, and then Ariane 6 is Ariane 6. So I think it's kind of in a hard place based off of what rockets they have to launch with. They also have Atlas V, which is pretty reliable, but it uses the exact same pad and infrastructure as Vulcan, so you can't do them simultaneously. It's a struggle. I guess SpaceX has the advantage of basically owning the launch market as is. So, let's see. It appears as if there is a hold in the countdown temporarily. Do not know yet what that means for today's launch attempt, but it is just temporarily, at least, in a hold. We're going to keep an eye on that. And a reminder, this is a 27-minute window, so they still have time. So they have not started fueling yet, which is on a positive for them. There's definitely some opportunity there. I know the weather, of course, one of the big concerns. D, I believe we have you in the field. How is it looking out there right now?
We have been hearing thunder and seeing lightning all morning, and that has let up a bit, but it has also started to come back. We're hearing the distant thunder right now. Now, like you were talking about earlier, like the prediction was actually really good for today's mission, with the concern being cumulus clouds for the liftoff. We're definitely seeing those cumulus clouds, and we've also been seeing a lot of lightning, so that would be like the electric fields rule and the like. So it's Florida. Weather can change quite rapidly, but we are all set up. We are out of a phase 2, so we're able to be out here for the time being. There's nothing within that designated radius that is of concern, but certainly they're going to be keeping a close eye on weather this morning, because there was the system that made its way inland over Titusville before sort of dissipating, and there are also several cells out over the ocean right now. So they're definitely keeping a close eye on it. That could be why they went into this hold. They might want to give it more time. They might want to move towards the very end of the window. They didn't have a ton of time there, but we don't know until we hear an update from them. We're not in any phase 2s, so that's a good thing for the possibility of a launch day. So we just have to wait and see when that clock opens back up and potentially starts counting down to a new time. But I'm here. We're ready for launch. Like, I hope to see this thing go.
That's what we're all hoping for. Thank you, D, for gutting out the weather and everything out there and getting that all set up. We appreciate it. And you saw from the KSE weather cycle that we saw that there's just the Phase 1 lightning watch, not a Phase 2 lightning warning. And it looks like we're seeing some parts here that may be heading over to SpaceX's other launch pad at 39A. Alex, what are these possible pieces we're looking at here?
They look like parts of the cryogenic pipe. I have no idea. There's a lot of flanges though. That is for sure. But yeah, I guess that might be for Falcon. Excuse me, for Starship at 39A. They've been sending a lot of parts lately. To that pad, of course, to outfit it and getting it ready to go. I'm not sure why they're stopped there though, because that's a live feed. There we go. There was a car passing by. I was like, is that a still? But yeah.
No, you are looking live at our camera there. By the way, in terms of weather, there was a poll. Which has better weather conditions, Florida or Planet Hoth? And Hoth won 51 to 48. Thanks. Yeah, Florida Tourism Board. Crispy always jokes about that. The Florida Tourism Board lies with all of the weather because they always say it's bright and sunny in all the pictures, and then it ends up being gray and cloudy and rainy. But it's not. It's still pretty out there. It's not rocket launch weather pretty, but it's still pretty, right? No support. Okay.
Are we zooming in even further on this thing? And then it goes.
Yeah, why not? Take a look at the parts. So we got the rocket on the right, and why not? Let's see here. Deborah Jean asking, do you think we will have second stage views on this launch since we didn't on the first Falcon Kuiper launch?
I'm not sure.
Very weirdly secretive with their deployments.
Yeah, I think we're gonna still see nothing. I guess it's the other way around. I should have said we will not see anything here on from Falcon 9. Why are we? We're still looking at the pipes. There we go. Speaking of seeing things, we can see the rocket, but the question is, we will see the satellites from SpaceX and whatnot. Of course, SpaceX show what the customer allows them to show, right? And they've been very clear in the previous launch of Kuiper on Falcon 9 that it was the customer requesting them to not show the satellites and not show the deployment. And so I'm not sure what we're gonna see, but I'm gonna say probably the same as the first mission. We've seen the same also with ULA and the Atlas, the two Atlas 5 launches that we've seen, that we've and we've only seen this. Like, this is the only thing from that first Falcon 9 Kuiper mission, an empty deployer, and that's it. And it's like, why are you hiding? It's not like it's super duper secret, like not classified stuff. Maybe it is, and we just are not aware of it. Who knows? But it just seems like they're more secretive than the National Reconnaissance Office. It's weird.
Yeah, we didn't even know the exact details of the deployment on the first launch, KA-01, till hours after. It's a bit wild, especially, I guess, just because we're so used to seeing payload fairing jettison and all of the nice, pretty Starlink satellites nestled in together.
Yeah.
But it is quite odd. So for
And
those
there
just
go the
joining...
pipes.
There go the pipes. For those just joining again, you do see the hold in the top left. This is the Kuiper Falcon 2 mission. The clock is in a hold currently, but they still have, 15 more minutes to be able to pick up the count, Alex-ish?
At least until 53 minutes past the hour, so essentially in about 10 minutes or so, because that will be the limit, right? They start propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. So the end of the window, it's 10:28 a.m. Eastern. So they will have to pick up the count at the latest like 9:53 and being T minus 35 minutes at that time to be able to start the propellant load. Because if they like that propellant load sequence is fixed, it's always 35 minutes from the start of it to launch. So if they delay past that and they still haven't picked up the count, then we are definitely in S-word territory here.
Yeah, we didn't say it. It just hinted at it. We haven't said the word. Don't worry, none of us have today. So we're trying to. We're not superstitious, but we're kind of stitious. All right. And Resistojet, as we continue to see the weather and all the clouds and everything, and all the lightning warnings that we've seen, they're asking, why are cumulus clouds specifically a problem? That's because they are the ones that are most likely to be able to produce lightning, or at least have the conditions that it can create lightning. So basically, as the rocket flies through the cloud, it is going so fast that in a cloud that might normally cause a thunderstorm with lightning, it can actually create its own electricity, causing it to basically make a lightning strike and strike the vehicle. It's a fancy term called triboelectrification, for those who remember from the Ares program. But yeah, basically they don't want the rocket to be struck by lightning by creating its own lightning. We've seen that, again, Apollo 12 got struck by lightning on the way up, and that is the SCE to aux call that you hear in the intro. So, yeah, that's why they don't fly through those clouds and why we continue to keep an eye on the weather. JC Davis coming in with the super chat asking, will Kuiper make Kuiper trains like Starlink trains? Alex?
Well, it depends on what they, what they look like. One of the things is that they are a little bit higher. They are not deployed as low as Starlink, and so that's one of the things that probably differentiates why we're not seeing Kuiper trains. I've not been aware, at the very least on social media, of people watching and looking at these Kuiper trains or anything like that. Maybe they'll be more common once they start launching more of these. I do remember, at least with Starlink, even with the first V 0.9 mission, they did see like lots of trains like really, really quickly, like the first time they launch a batch of Starlink satellites. So I'm not sure. Again, it'll depend on how bright they are, and it's also deployed higher than Starlink, so it's less visible. It's less bright in that sense, right? So I'm not sure, but they probably have some kind of train-like situation there. It's also the way that Starlinks are deployed as well, I should say, because the Starlinks are deployed all at once, so they are closer together. They are clumped together, whereas these Kuiper satellites, they seem to be more like they deploy like 2 at a time or 3 at a time, and they are a bit more spread out. But still, they might still also be sort of very close together for the first couple of days and things like that. So I'm really curious how they might look once deployed.
Yeah, again, it's one of those where you go out at night and all of a sudden you go, oh, what are those lights? And realize, hey, it's a train. There are some ways to kind of track the train online. I'm sure you can look it up, at least for Starlinks, but most of the time it's just those couple hours right after deploy as they start to spread out. And it's a lot harder now than it used to be, given that they have the anti-reflective design to try and reduce the amount of light pollution, basically, for astronomers. And both Starlink and Kuiper have plans to mitigate that, right, Alex?
Yeah, there are certain things in place that they have. For example, anti-reflective coatings and things like that, or certain coatings that maybe reflect in one direction, but in the other they are actually opaque, for example. So there are ways that you can sort of mitigate those concerns as well, with all of the brightness and whatnot. And both, this is at least something that is good to see, that at least both of these constellations have publicly talked about that. OneWeb has also done their own sort of work in that area. Not so sure about the Google One satellites though, from China, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will definitely see. And again, you can see in the top left corner, still temporarily in a hold, and there is the official update. It is no longer a hold, it is now a scrub. The Brevard Emergency Operations Center announcing they are standing down after a scrubbed launch. So, darn. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
try again. The next attempt would be tomorrow, about 20 minutes earlier, the window opens, right?
Yeah, the window will be, instead of 28, it'll be 20. Excuse me, not 28. It was supposed to be 27. I was thinking about the end of the window. So it will be 25-minute long window that opens at 9:40 a.m. Eastern. So we'll see you all again tomorrow, I guess. But yeah, I don't like that. I don't like when things scrub like this.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, it's better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than in the air wishing you were on the ground. I know it's an old cliche at this point, but it's true, right?
Yep,
Um,
especially with the weather. You shouldn't mess with the weather, I guess.
right. And tomorrow's forecast is 70% favorable was what I saw. So we'll see. But then again, today was 80% favorable and didn't happen. They've not said
So that means
officially
it'll
a
launch
reason.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't said an official reason, but weather has been a concern throughout the day. Also, worth pointing out again, Crew 11 just recently had to scrub after a 90% favorable weather forecast because of weather. So, there is that.
Yeah. Sometimes the other percentage wins, right? Sometimes it's a bad percentage. As I mentioned, right? Crew 11, 90% favorable weather, and then the 10% of non-favorable weather actually won. This one, 80% favorable, 20% unfavorable, the 20% won. So we'll see tomorrow what happens.
Yeah, there is one positive, I guess, to a scrub, and that is
What is it?
the secret store returns for the scrub merch. These only happen again after a scrub. They're very limited time that they stay active, that you can actually go and get one. But I watched the whole stream and all I got was a Falcon 9 scrub. As you could see there in the top left, the graphic almost identical. So you can get this at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, but only for a limited time. Again, this is a special thing because you were here and stuck with us through this scrub attempt. So keep an eye out at shop.nasaspaceflight.com to grab yours, and also keep an eye out for how long you have to grab it, because it's not long. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, we'll have to wait to see B-1091's flight. There's no other launches scheduled between them, right? So this will still be the 100th SpaceX launch of the year when it does go.
Yeah, the next after that should be Starlink launch from Vandenberg, but that's not until very, very, very late on Friday local. Or very, very early Saturday here, for example, in Europe. But yeah.
Yeah. And again, since you stuck with us through this scrub, we have the link pinned in chat. So as of right now, it's not like you can sneak into the store and find it. Because you're here watching with us, you'll get the pin up at the top to make sure that you get it there. It'll be on the site soon, but that's a thank you for sticking with us through all of this. Well, I think at this point, we're getting close to wrapping up here. We'll have to try again for this tomorrow. But, I mean, Alex, thank you for joining. Appreciate having you here with us on the commentary, even through all this weather mania nonsense craziness that is Florida in the summer.
Yeah, I was gonna make this joke in the back channel, but I'm gonna make it here, and it's a pun, of course. That is, sometimes scrubs give you an S curve. I don't know. It was gonna be a joke because it's scurb. When you sort of type it wrongly. Anyways, let's just close this. Thank you for having me as usual.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Save those puns for the flame trench or something, you know? Wow, wild.
It's a really bad pun. I know it. I know it.
We of course have our amazing team out in the field that rolled out. We have Max Evans and D Wise gutting it out through the weather, through the phase 2 lightning warnings, and still managing to get these feeds up for us. Appreciate our amazing field team. And then producing today's stream is the Mr. Map himself, the fantastic weather person, Ryan Caton, space enthusiast extraordinaire. We appreciate you doing all of that for us today. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host. Let me just quickly, before we go, thank Bideford here for a $25 super chat saying thank you, Alex and Sawyer. Thank you, Bideford. We very much appreciate it. So
Also, our team in the field.
I thanked them.
No, yeah, but like I do it.
Oh, so
'Cause I know
so you're-
Bideford is thanking us, but I thank them as well.
on Bideford's behalf.
Exactly. Yeah. Little bit my part of thanks.
There we go. Well, hopefully we will see you again for tomorrow's attempt, so stick around for that. Also scheduled for tomorrow, we will have the Flame Trench. We will have This Week in Spaceflight, and the Flame Trench will include the undocking of Crew 10 from the ISS, so lots to look forward to. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you next time.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, planet.
Echo down to nominal.
Fighting downside FTE off. Bring in FTE off. Off.
It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage! What is this? Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?